Hey everybody, welcome to the show, Around the Nation, right here, TYT Nation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. Got a great show for you guys today. Fantastic stuff. We've got a little bit more on Paul Manafort. It's a very interesting story. I'll do a breakdown here in just a moment. But like I said, welcome to the show. If you haven't already, please give us a like and give us a share. Really helps out the show. Another way that you can help the show, tweet us, hashtag TYTNation during the show. I do like to check those tweets once in a while. And I also like to read them once in a while. So please use that hashtag. Another way to help the show is to, of course, use the super chat here on YouTube. That goes to help the show. Also elevates your comments, which I enjoy reading. You know, it's funny. After every show, I like to go through and look at the comments to see what you guys are saying. You know, get some feedback and everything like that. So I really appreciate all the good stuff you guys say in the comments and all the suggestions and things like that. So keep it up. You guys are the best chat room in the world. And the best audience in the world. So thank you so much for interacting and being a part of the show. I couldn't do the show without you. Speaking of, again, people that couldn't do the show without, I want to do a couple of patron shout-outs here. First, we have Ulrich Sattler, Sharon Evans, Tony Garcia, Holly Tallman, and a huge special shout-out to Sharon Valeris Erickson. So thank you, Ulrich, Sharon, the other Sharon, Sharon Evans, Sharon Velas Erickson, Tony, and Holly. Thank you so much. You are what help continue to keep TYT Nation and progressive media on the air. So thank you so much. And, you know, like I like to support other progressive hosts as well. So that's why you see me, you know, I'm helping out Kyle from Secular Talk, of course. I'm a patron of FY Nation on Patreon, and also to the Rational National. And there are also lots of other great channels. There's Jimmy Dore that you can help out on Patreon. Of course, he's there. There's the Humanist Report. So there's a lot of great people that you can support as well. So we like to support each other here on progressive media to help build a better media model, to actually do better and to actually promote progressive values. So I definitely suggest that you go out and support them as well. All right. Anyway, that said, let's do a breakdown of what we're going to do on the show today. Again, we've got Paul Manafort here. We'll talk about that. We've got Fox News hosts and people working at Fox News. What do they think about the Russia coverage, which was very interesting to say the least, on Monday. Fun story. Then we have Trump voters on collusion. Then we also have, let's see, climate change being even worse. So, damn. I've got the details on that story. That's awful. How much have we spent on war? Heavy story on that. And then, of course, Bernie Sanders. Story on Sanders and a new poll, of course, that confirms what we already knew. I'll get to that, of course, at the end of the show. So there's your breakdown. Let's start out. Let's talk about Manafort. All right. Now, the government has just declared Paul Manafort a flight risk. Now, Manafort and Rick Gates, of course, were arrested on Monday after they turned themselves in to the FBI. Now, they turned themselves in because of the indictment from Robert Mueller, which included 12 counts, 12 different counts, including conspiracy, money laundering, failure to disclose lobbying, lying to the FBI, and, of course, like I said, lobbying on behalf of a foreign political party without actually saying that they were lobbying on behalf of a foreign political party. So now during the court hearing, the government successfully made the case that Manafort and Gates were a massive flight risk and should be given house arrest. Now that's interesting. So what made them such a big flight risk anyway? It's like, what in their history convinced the judge, okay, look, these guys, if we don't give them house arrest, if we don't watch over these people, they're gone. They're going to up and disappear. Well, they looked through some of their travel and some of their financial reports and made the decision that, yeah, these guys are too much of a danger to a fleeing justice, that we're going to make sure that they're home. Okay. Now, CNN put together some highlights of this, of some of the reasons why, some of their travel, and according to their court report, Manafort was found to have 3 different passports, each under a different phone number, and had submitted 10 passport applications in roughly as many years, prosecutors have said. Now, his travel included going to Mexico, China, and Ecuador with a phone and email account registered under a fake name. So, phone and email, fake name, traveling to different countries under fake names. Wonderful. Now, but don't worry, there's nothing shady about that. You'll hear that from Fox News, of course. Oh, nothing wrong with going with no. Well, most likely they just won't report it, but there still will be people who are defending him. Oh, what are you talking about? It's an email from a fake name and a phone number. I don't see anything wrong with that. I see no evil. I hear no evil, but I definitely speak evil, apparently. Now, some of the other places that he's traveled, at least over the past year, were places like Dubai, Cancun, Panama City, Havana, Shanghai, Madrid, Tokyo, and the Grand Cayman Island. So it's that frequent amount of travel and the collection of passports and the fact that he's used fake names that prompted the judge to be like, okay, this guy, if we take our eyes off him, he's gone. Like a ghost. Okay. So now there are other things also in these court papers, excuse me, that also deemed him a flight risk. And that's, of course, him lying about his assets in foreign banks. So, hey, man, if you've got all this money in foreign banks, like 19 million, 23 million, however million, 10 million, like the Bank of Cyprus, for example, or money is sitting in the Cayman Islands, well, it makes it pretty easy for you to just be like, uh-oh, the heat's on. I got to get out of here. But don't worry. I got a vast fortune. I can live it up on some tropical island. No problem. So let me give you an example of him lying about his assets. Manafort wrote on loan applications and other financial documents that his assets were worth between $19 million in April 2012 and $136 million in May of 2016. So I think part of that also is where he was trying to get loans for other homes that he can funnel money through and getting loans on that so we can funnel even more money through different properties. So this is all a giant, I mean, there's tax evasion going on here, and then there's also money laundering, alleged money laundering going on here. Now, in some months, like while he served as Trump's national campaign chairman, Manafort's assessment of his worth fluctuated. In August of 2016, he said his assets were worth $28 million, then wrote he had a $63 million in assets on a different application. So very shady guy, very dishonest about how much money he actually has. Interesting. Now, again, he's lied to all these different banks, and it's been shown in that. Bought homes, lied about the use of those homes to get tax credits, tax breaks, borrow against that, go buy other things, go buy $1 million worth of rugs. I still don't know why. I know some people are trying to be like, but if they're nice Persian rugs, you might actually get some return on investment. Oh, I don't really think he was all that interested in the return on investment on rugs. Maybe that has to do with money laundering. I don't know. I don't think all of his weird purchases or excessive purchases, and maybe they're not excessive, I don't know, but maybe not all of that, of course, is money laundering. But some of the big stuff, all the house flipping, I'm sure some of that might have something to do with money laundering, but that's my guess, right? Now, of course, any prosecutor that's looking at the amount of travel and how much money he's flipped and him lying on different various forms to banks, they're going to look at that and be like, no, that looks a little shady. That looks a little weird. That's a problem. Now, that's Manafort, right? Well, here's some other strange behavior by Manafort's protege, Gates. Gates, according to CNN, frequently changed banks and opened and closed bank accounts. Well, okay, look, change bank. Sometimes you don't like your bank. Again, I don't have much experience with that. I've been at the same credit union for, 7 years? So I don't feel the need to open or different checking accounts in different banks and different bank accounts. So maybe I don't have that experience. But even if you have changed banks pretty frequently to find the right one, the right interest rate, and opened accounts here and there, you probably have not likely opened 55 accounts with 13 different financial institutions within a short period of time. I'm just saying. Some of these bank accounts were opened in England and Cyprus, where he held more than $10 million from 2010 to 2013. Again, 55 accounts. Oh, but there's nothing strange here. No. Really? Who opens that many accounts in foreign countries? Weird. Shady behavior, right? To me, it looks like steps that people would take to launder large amounts of money. But that's just me. I'm not an expert in money laundering, so I don't know. But again, all this stuff makes sense that, for a judge to go and say, okay, dude, no, we're not going to let you go anywhere. You got to stay home. Now, they're lucky that they even got to get out and have home arrest or house arrest. There's a lot of people out there that wouldn't. A lot of people that are, poor, they end up being stuck in prison until they get charged or until they get sentenced. So they're actually lucky that they get to stay in their luxurious homes. I'm pretty sure he can spend all the time he wants with his rugs. I'm really stuck on the rug thing. But now, currently, speaking of house arrest, Manafort and Gates' house arrest conditions mean they can only leave their homes to meet with lawyers or appear in court, or for medical and religious reasons, and they must check in with authorities daily. They face sentences of more than 10 years if convicted on all charges. So, look, conspiracy, money laundering, lying to investigators, all that stuff, 10 years. Really? 10 years. That's old charges. Look, let me address that, okay? Because this is what boggles me about the justice system, right? So all these crimes, 10 years. And it's very, very likely that they might serve, if anything, a fraction of that if they're found guilty, if they're convicted. Now, contrast that with people who are primarily poor and minority that end up facing life sentences for things like possession of marijuana. Now, here you had Manafort and Gates living it up, fancy flights, to different places and houses and the goddamn rugs and all the money they spend on, flipping homes and just living in the lap of luxury. And again, that person who might have sold a bag of weed or even just possessed enough weed in their car or something, or God forbid, had it planted on them by a police officer, that's happened before, ends up facing a life sentence. Think about that for a minute. Look, Manafort, of course, didn't hurt anybody, right? And I'm not in favor of locking him up for life in prison for doing what he allegedly did. So I'm not making that argument. I'm not. And that's, look, laundering money, too. I mean, think of the people who do launder money, right? Those are people often with criminal ties to dangerous individuals, maybe even mobsters, right? But then again, look, mostly nonviolent. These are financial white-collar crimes. I'm not looking to put anybody in prison for the rest of their lives for something even nonviolent. What I'm looking for here is, and I think what I'm asking for is parity. If you're going to throw a drug dealer in prison for life, then why not throw Manafort in there too? He did a nonviolent crime and might have helped some violent people who've done real harm. If you're going to do that to the drug dealer who supplied drugs to somebody, well, then do it to Manafort too. He deserves life, right? That's actually not what I'm arguing. Yes, drug dealers should get in trouble for what they're doing. Yes. Don't forget, though, that some of these drug dealers are only in the business because they don't have any other opportunities. Manafort and Gates were swimming in opportunity, okay? And they still decided, you know what? We're going to get rich off crime. Allegedly, of course. But look, my point is maybe if we're going to, or maybe instead of locking people away for life, for nonviolent drug crimes, maybe we should look into having a more fair justice system. That includes fair sentences and judges actually being able to be judges and having fair sentences for everyone. That includes the wealthy and the connected. Now, I know that's going way, way too far already because, yes, they've been charged, indicted. We'll see. They're not, we don't even know if they're guilty of this stuff, of these different crimes. But it just always makes me think of how we treat minorities and the poor versus the wealthy and connected like Manafort. When you look at them, when you compare them side by side, it's obvious that there is definitely a two-tier justice system in America. I know that got away from Manafort and being under house arrest, but that's an important thing. But anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Fox News. Now on Monday, while Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller was handing out indictments to Paul Manafort and Rick Gates, Fox News was busy talking about cheeseburgers. Yes, cheeseburgers. There's a video of that segment out there. It's crazy. But look, while they eventually did get to Manafort, mainly by talking about Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and how it's fake news, their coverage, like I said, left a lot to be desired, even among some Fox News employees who were actually very, very unhappy of the coverage. This is amazing. Now, according to conversations CNN had with several individuals placed throughout the network, who were unnamed, of course, because you can't publicly speak out against Fox News, some employees were embarrassed and humiliated by their network's coverage of the latest revelations in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian election meddling. Now, one Fox News personality said in a text message to CNN, quote, "I'm watching now and screaming." Damn. That's a pretty strong reaction. Okay. He also said, he or she, we don't know who it is, said, quote, "I want to quit." Okay, well, look, hey, why don't you? Look, it should be obvious to you by now that this is not a news organization. Now, did you just notice that? I mean, you guys didn't see that during the 9 Benghazi investigations headed by Republicans that found that Obama and Hillary Clinton did nothing wrong in Benghazi? Did you just notice that you're not actually a news organization? Like, have you watched Hannity at all? You would have to be screaming. We've been screaming for like the past few years. Do you see nothing wrong, for example, going back to Hannity? Again, do you see anything wrong with all the weird conspiracy theories from Sean Hannity? No, you didn't see anything wrong then, did you? No, it's all now. It's all now. Really. But my criticism aside, one senior Fox News employee told CNN, quote, It is another blow to journalists at Fox who come in every day wanting to cover the news in a fair and objective way." He also said, that there were many eye rolls in the newsroom over how the news was covered. There are journalists at Fox News? Really? Not once have I ever seen them break their own story. Okay? I mean, you know, whether it be corruption from the Democratic Party or corruption from the Republican Party, they don't, like, break stories. Okay? I haven't seen any anyway. They do commentary in the news, they do opinion, and they do straight news, and that's fine. I do the same thing. I do commentary on the news. I don't actually go out and break stories. I wish I had the ability to do so, and the funding to be able to do so. But I just do, for now, I do commentary. But I'm also not claiming to be a journalist. These people are like, no, well, they're journalists at Fox News. Well, that would be interesting if, like, okay, I would support you calling them journalists if they actually did some journalism. I don't think they do, but that's just, again, my opinion on this. But, okay. The person also said, quote, Fox feels like an extension of the Trump White House. Feels like. No, you are. Without a doubt, Fox News is an extension of the White House. And look, every Republican administration, the Bush administration, for example, it was also an extension of the White House. See, Fox News was originally created to be the political arm of the Republican Party, or the media arm of the Republican Party. They're not a news organization. The whole purpose is that Roger Ailes created Fox News for is to go and do Republican talking points and Republican propaganda. That helps the party. That's it. They've never been a news or journalistic operation. Seriously. But anyway, to be fair, they did cover the Mueller investigation as the top story. Let me explain to you how they did so. In contrast with CNN and MSNBC, which aired nonstop rolling coverage throughout the day, Fox News found plenty of time to cover their other topics, like the NFL protests, North Korea, and the tax cut plan, which is basically a plan to cut taxes for the richest Americans. But they won't tell you that. And of course, when they did run segments, those segments happened to be old spin. For example, Fox News aired segments that questioned Mueller's credibility, and many were framed around how Trump and his allies were responding to the news. On Fox News' homepage, the lead story at one point was focused on Trump going after the indictments. Another lead story cited Manafort's lawyer and asked, quote, Mueller's ridiculous claims? Question mark. Oh, but they're just asking a question. That's okay. Now, one Fox News personality told CNN, quote, this kind of coverage does the viewer a huge disservice and further divides the country. Yes, he's absolutely right. But again, what do you think Fox News was about? You hired in, you know this place. You worked there. The whole purpose from the beginning is to do this kind of Republican propaganda. Okay. And yes, they do their viewers a huge disservice. I mean, there's been studies where Fox News viewers are actually less informed than people who don't watch the news. That's because they lie. They put out propaganda. They're not being honest with you. They're not actually reporting the news. Now, look, to be fair, I guess a lot of Republicans in the establishment, they do not like Donald Trump. Let's be fair about that, okay? I mean, you only have to go to Bob Corker, Jeff Flake, John McCain, you know, those establishment Republicans, okay? They don't like Trump because they're like, hey, man, look, we agree politically and ideology, you know, we agree with his ideology, but he's a little too loud. He's outing us in a way that we're not comfortable with. We'll still vote with him. We'll still vote, you know, for the things that he supports, and we still expect him to sign things like giant tax cuts, and we still want to get rid of the ACA. We still do hate brown people, even though we're going to have to start pandering to them if we want to win elections. But, you know, he's a little too loud about this, and it makes us look bad. It's hurting the brand, okay? So that's what that's about. And look, the base, they feel the same. Like, they also agree with Trump on the issues, and the rest of the Republicans on a lot of these issues, but they love how open and honest Trump's about it. Like, for example, Trump, when he said, when he made his campaign announcement, and he was like, Mexicans, rapists. Some rapists and criminals. Some I think are good people. The base was like, yes, that's what we think. We also don't like the Mexicans. We also think that they're criminals and rapists. Wonderful. So that's why the base loves Donald Trump. And of course, Fox News, they know their audience, so they've got to pander to that audience. And that's exactly what they do day in and day out. And look, again, they're going to do this fan service. That's why I pretty much called or went to referring to Fox News as state media. That's what I call them. Now, what's interesting is going back to CNN here, Fox News journalists took significant issue with their network's opinion hosts, who deflected from the news and, in Sean Hannity's case, characterized Mueller's investigation as, quote, a witch hunt, a term Trump used on Sunday in an angry tweet to describe the probe. That's probably where he got that. Donald Trump will watch Fox News, and then he will mirror and parrot what he sees on Fox News. See, we've elected a Fox News viewer to be president of the United States. That's sad. This is like taking your average person. And look, the average age of a Fox News viewer is what? 69, 70? Somewhere around there? Trump, not too far away from that. He's what, 72? Not quite sure on that. I'll get back to you on that. But basically, we took the average Fox News viewer, and as a country, elected him. That's a disaster. That's why he's so dumb. He doesn't actually get facts. He doesn't get exposed to facts. But anyway, that Fox News employee told CNN, quote, that segment and outnumbered, questioning Mueller's integrity, was absurd and deserves all the scorn that it can get. Now, of course, among the establishment, Mueller is actually very well respected, and everything that I've seen about him shows that he seems to be a pretty respectable guy. He seems to be playing it pretty straight and just actually getting at the truth. So I don't have a problem with Mueller. And a lot of Republicans, a lot of Democrats have a lot of respect for Robert Mueller. So, and I think that's coming from that perspective. Now, that person also said that it was laughable seeing Hannity and Ingram, two Fox News opinion hosts who openly supported Trump, tripping over themselves, saying Mueller's team has found nothing thus far. It's an embarrassment, another Fox News employee echoed to CNN. Frankly, there are shows on our network that are backing the president at all costs, and it's that short-term strategy that undermines the good work being done by others. I have yet to see that good work, but all right. So, again, I don't want to go and explain everything that Mueller found, but apparently if you're going to issue indictments, there's a good reason. And look, the indictments might not have nothing directly to do with, or if you want to argue that the indictments for Manafort and Gates don't have anything directly to do with the campaign. Oh, he did it, all this stuff before. That's when he was presenting. It was just about money laundering. It's its own thing, right? We can't really say that about Papadopoulos, which, by the way, has a fun name to say. Papadopoulos. I know. He, look, he worked with the campaign. He was in the campaign. He was a foreign policy advisor. And he's like, kept trying to go and set up meetings with Russians. He's like, hey, by the way, I got this guy in Russia who wants to talk to you. Really? Kept trying to get the campaign. Actually went to, I believe he went to Russia on the behest of somebody higher up in the campaign. You can't really avoid that one. And that's, of course, one of the people, one of the indictments, of course, because of the fact that he did flip and he had been advising the FBI and cooperating with the FBI after getting in trouble. That's the one that Trump and company, I think, are the most afraid of. So, but anyway, as far as this Fox News, these people that are actually speaking out, not publicly, but on the record, speaking out against Fox News and their coverage of Mueller. Look, this is Fox News' MO. Again, they're Trump TV. And there's a reason, right? There's a reason they do this, and that's because it has to do with, number one, access, and number two, money. That's what this is about. And again, of course, as I mentioned before, this is what Fox News was created to do, to protect Republican presidents and to do Republican propaganda. So there's three different factors in here. The base loves it. Number one, it got the money, and then it goes with their original mission. So this is why these Fox News people don't go public, because they want to keep that money. They want to keep their jobs. Part of me understands that, but at the other side, but the other part is like, are you crazy? Why would you stay at a place like that? No, if you have so many problems with it, why don't you leave? And the reason that they don't leave, sadly, always boils down to the money. It's always about the money. It's always about a paycheck. And that's why they will continue to do what they do. And that's why they won't stand up openly against what Fox News is actually doing. Okay. Moving on. Now, there's a new disastrous poll that has just come out about the Russian investigation and Donald Trump. Now, this poll specifically has to deal with how Trump supporters feel about the investigation. Now, this was conducted by the left-leaning firm Public Policy Polling, so take that into account. And according to this poll, 3/4 of Trump supporters believe that the Trump-Russia story is fake news. That's not a surprise. And despite there being, of course, 2 indictments, and of course, George Papadopoulos turning in and, of course, cooperating with the FBI on that. But look, hey, I'm not surprised. All you hear on conservative media, especially Fox News, is, oh, no, it's fake news. It's a witch hunt. Okay, don't listen to it. It's not a real investigation. Trump didn't do anything wrong. Everything's fine. Go back to your regular propaganda. Okay. Hey, look, if you want to ignore reality, fine. Look, you and I know, I think we all know, that governments influence elections. That's what, sadly, a lot of them do. I know we've done it. It's not like I'm saying we haven't. Of course we've done it. And actually, we've done terrible things to try to influence countries and to try to shape other countries into being more friendly towards the United States. We overthrew the democratically elected government of Iran. You can't get more meddly than that. Okay? We went in there and we said, hey, you know what? We're going to just overthrow the Shah. We're going to put our own government in that's a puppet to us so that we can get access to your oil, your natural resources. The Iranian people, turns out, they didn't really like that, and they went full fundamentalist. So that's just one example. There are other examples, for example, going into South American countries and islands and such, and basically at the behest of our corporations, specifically our banana corporations, they didn't like how these countries were nationalizing their bananas, taking away profit from our corporations. So we're like, no, I think you guys need a little dose of freedom. So we go in and we take over, prop up a government that's a dictatorial government, by the way. But you know what? It makes sure that the bananas and the money kept flowing to these giant corporations. So we have interfered in other elections and interfered in other governments for a long time, and for the worst reasons. That's why I think Russia also wanted to interfere with ours. Their corporations are like, hey, we want to deal with Rex Tillerson. There's a $500 million deal I forget if it's a $500 million or a $500 billion deal that was going to happen between ExxonMobil and the Russian government. That would have been great for our corporations and also great for the Russian government. The thing that stopped it is the sanctions that were put in after the, Russian annexation of Crimea. It was part of Ukraine. So it would make sense that Russia's like, hey, I'm looking out for our own financial interest. We're going to see if we can meddle with this election and get in somebody who's a bit more favorable, who might actually undo these sanctions. So that's why I believe they actually did want to meddle in our election, because it would make sense, right? And there's actually evidence too that the Russians didn't just play the one side, the Trump side, but also tried to play the Democratic side. So I mean, look at the Uranium One deal. Some of the money that was going from Russia to Bill Clinton to do speeches, maybe get a little bit of influence, so Hillary Clinton can hit that reset button on Russia and maybe let those corporations make a deal. Just saying. It's corruption 101. But see, the next thing on this poll, though, that concerns me, with all that aside, and all that, it's just fake news thing aside, is this. 79% of people polled who voted for President Trump said that he should remain even if collusion is proven. So this is Trump voters saying that we don't care if you worked with Russia to try to win the election. This is if it's proven without a doubt that he had colluded with Vladimir Putin to win the election. They don't care. 80% of them, nearly 80% are like, I don't give a fuck. Go ahead and break the law. It's okay. It's our guy. Now, these people should not be allowed to talk about rule of law ever again. They don't care about the law unless it's, of course, Hillary. It's hypocrisy. And speaking of Hillary, imagine if Hillary Clinton had won. It had been proven that the uranium deal, for example, was her way of colluding with Russia, right? And that afterwards, Russia was like, oh, no, we're going to give you some money. We're going to donate to the Clinton Foundation. And, we're going to help you with opposition research against Donald Trump, all that stuff. If she won and there was evidence beyond a reasonable doubt of collusion, right? I'm guessing these same supporters, these same Trump supporters, would be like, oh my God, impeach Hillary Clinton. Get her out, get her out, get her out. You know what? I would also agree with that. Get her out, get her out, get her out. Because that is, of course, corruption. I'm against corruption when it applies to either party. But I'm just saying, this is hypocrisy. It's like, no. It's okay. It's our guy. He's for us. Even though he did a deal with Russia. Okay, well, great. So we see how consistent you are on rule of law. Lovely. Look, this is about, to me, consistency in holding a politicians accountable for corruption. I should believe in fighting against the corruption. But apparently these guys do not. But hey, look, it's true what he said. That if Trump said, I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, and you know what? They'd still be with me. Yeah, he's right about that. Absolutely right. And that's scary, by the way. This is sort of like I don't know, a cult of personality, I think, is what it is. And like I said, it's super scary. No, don't worry. He's one of us. He's one of us. We protect our own, even if he's a massive, massive criminal. Well, I got news for you. People who believe that, he's not one of you. And you're not going to believe me. I know that. But nonetheless, he is what he is, a billionaire snake oil salesman. He's a showman. He knows how to play the crowd. He knows how to lie to you. Because it's what he's been doing his entire career. Doesn't care about you. All he cares about is himself. That's it. Look, man, people are stuck in their bubbles, man. The ideological bubble, right? I mean, like, I'm sure they're sitting here like, okay, look, maybe Trump is a criminal, but I still don't care because at least he's not Hillary. At least he's not a Democrat. Democrats are pure evil. Trump's only partly evil, but he's our kind of evil. Ridiculous. It's gross. But it does kind of show you how far the partisan divide is between supporters of President Trump, I'm talking diehard supporters of President Trump, not the people who think that, hey man, look, Trump's good because he's actually pointing out the corruption. I actually agree with that sentiment. Yeah, the one positive thing that you can find from Trump's presidency is that he's so corrupt that the corruption is out in the open. You can see it. Everybody can see it. This isn't shining a flashlight. This is taking a floodlight and going, look at the corruption. It's right here, neon signs. The one positive thing. But if these Trump supporters don't want to see it, well, I mean, that's their problem. That's them intentionally putting on the blinders. But for the rest of us, we see him for who he is. And look, the same poll had 49% of Americans polled saying that Trump should be impeached. That's almost half. That's unprecedented. We haven't seen anything like that before. So it just kind of shows you the massive, massive divide between them and us. And unfortunately, that's what politics has turned into, us versus them. Okay. Save the climate change story. No, you know what? No. Don't want to depress anybody. Fuck it. I'm going to depress you guys. All right. Now, there's a new study out that says that climate change may actually be worse than we previously believed. Now, this new study, of course, was conducted by French researchers from the French National Center for Scientific Research, and it suggests that the model used to map ocean temperatures that scientists have been using for decades is actually wrong. Now, that's very interesting. So what they did very, very simply is that they used this particular temperature model that assumed that temperatures were actually warmer over 100 million years ago than they are now. The research now that counters that suggests that the oceans were actually much cooler than we had thought. If true, they say, that means that the global warming we are currently undergoing is unparalleled within the last 100 million years and far worse than had been previously calculated. Now, scientists believe that the temperature of the ocean depths and the surface of the polar ocean 100 million years ago were about 15 degrees warmer than they are today, but they might have in fact have stayed relatively stable. So in the cooler, so it actually would have been 15 degrees cooler from what I understand. Now, Anders Myborn, head of EPFL's Laboratory for Biological Geochemistry and a professor at the University of Lausanne, says, if we're right, our study challenges decades of paleoclimate research. Oceans cover over 70% of our planet. They play a key role in the Earth's climate. Knowing the extent of which their temperatures have varied over geological time is crucial if we are to gain a fuller understanding of how they behave and to predict the consequences of current climate change more accurately. So, the researchers believe that the scientists had been overlooking crucial processes when they calculated the temperature of the seas millions of years ago. In so doing, they have been mistakenly thinking that they were warmer than they actually are. So, this is a group of scientists saying, we think you messed up. We think the methodology that you used was severely, well, maybe not severely, but were flawed. And that you came out with predictions that actually we're off quite a bit. And that climate change is actually far, far worse. Now, of course, there will be climate deniers that don't read the headline or that don't read anything but the headline. And they jump in and say, oh, see, models were fake news. They were wrong. Climate change, wrong, fake news, sad. But that's actually not what this report is actually saying. Now, I read through it. I suggest that you give it a read as well. What they're saying is something completely different. But onto the climate deniers for a bit, because there's been something that's been bothering me. The people that go in and say that kind of stuff don't actually understand science at all. See, there's a misconception about science that I think a lot of people, myself included, have been guilty of perpetrating or perpetuating. And that's the idea that science is 100% infallible. That's not actually true. The job of a scientist is actually to prove things wrong, not to prove them right 100%. Say you have a hypothesis, right? And you want to prove it. Well, you do that by observation, which includes measurements, studies, documenting results, and throwing in variables to test them. The whole purpose is experimentation. And it's not to prove you right, it's to prove you wrong. And if you start running out of ways to prove yourself wrong, then maybe you've got something. Science is about questioning results. It's about asking questions, period. Things are not 100% proven by science, even when they are eventually accepted by the general scientific community. It means they've just run out of ways to try and prove something wrong. So, I mean, consider gravity, right? We know gravity exists. It is a thing. And at this point, there's no question in the fact that it does exist, right? It's a scientific fact, even though they still call it a theory. Now, the questions about gravity among scientists are, what is it? What creates gravity? Is it a wave, or is it a particle, or is it both? So those are good questions, right? So where does it come from? How does it actually work? Okay. Nobody's having a question of, does gravity actually exist? We know it does. It's proven. It's because you can observe it and test it. Okay. But we don't know everything about gravity. And that's the thing about science, is that we're always asking more questions and we're always looking into more so we can understand it better. Okay. Now, climate change, that's also where we're at with climate change, by the way. It exists. Climate change does exist. It has been proven to exist, even among deniers. I mean, look at one of their favorite lines. But the climate has always been changing. Well, then you admit that climate change is real because it is changing. That underlying principle is true. Now, they'll deny that it's man-made or that humans have been influencing it and that it's rapidly changing. Now, one of the debates is how rapidly it's changing. Now, a lot of scientists on this front, on the rate, have actually been very conservative. Not in the political sense, by the way, but in, of course, basically they're being careful, they're being measured, and they're trying not to be too alarmist. Well, for me, red alert, okay? We've got a major, major problem. It is rapidly changing. I mean, climate, yes, has always changed, but again, it's been very rapidly changing since the industrial age. We have not seen this before. We've seen the climate get to a warmer point than where we're at, sure, absolutely. But those kind of changes took millions of years, millions upon millions of years to happen. What we've done is that we've taken a relatively mild, stable climate and we've jacked up the heat in a very, very short amount of time. Now that leads to very weird things happening that were traditionally more rare, did happen, yes. But these events, superstorms and the like, they actually now happen either more often and they're also stronger. Now, the other far more dangerous part about the rate of climate change is the impact on animal and plant life. Now, again, climate changes over long, long periods of time, right? And when it does that, and it has, then animals and plants are given a chance to be able to adjust, to be able to adapt over time. If you do it rapidly And when you're talking about geologic terms, a couple of centuries is actually super, super fast. Not to us, but geologic time, it's a blink of the eye. 200 years. When you do that incredibly sudden, when you change that climate so fast and make it that much warmer, that causes major, major problems. When it comes to adapting, plants and animals, they don't have time to adapt. If they don't have time to adapt, they die. If all the animals and plants die, then guess what? We die. You can't exactly eat money and drink oil. Just saying. It would cause massive die-offs in our food supply. Our food chain would collapse. It'd end up being like the Donner Party, even far, far worse. So, not good. Now, the people that deny this stuff, they don't understand how science works. They're dooming us all. That's a big, big problem. And unfortunately, a lot of those people end up getting paid by the fossil fuel industry. Those people who don't look at the long term and only look at, hey, how much money am I making today? How many more millions of dollars can go in my bank account at the end of the week? Look, if the rate of warming is worse than originally predicted, and again, this is a theory. They're trying to figure out why this is happening. If the rate of warming is worse than originally predicted, which, again, was already pretty bad to begin with, to be honest with you, then this study shows that we are in a world of trouble far, far sooner than we expected. Brace for impact. Okay. Moving forward. Now, there's a new report out from the Department of Defense that shows how much money that we've ended up paying in our endless wars. Now, according to the new Cost of War report from the Department of Defense, American taxpayers have spent at least $1.46 trillion on wars abroad since 2001, since September 11th. Now, can you imagine how much money that is? That is $1.4 trillion. Trillion. On just war. On just war. Okay. There are other things that are not actually added in here, and I'll get to that. But first, here's what the cost of, here's what cost the most money, and they kind of break it down. The the Afghanistan war from 2001 to 2014 and the Iraq war from 2003 to 2011 account for $1.3 trillion of that. The continuing presence in Afghanistan and anti-aerial ISIS operations in Iraq and Syria since 2014 have cost a combined $120 billion. So $1.3 trillion on just Iraq and Afghanistan. So those are George W. Bush's wars, right? Now, to be fair, they were continued by President Obama. So yes, of course he bears some of that cost. He was the one that continued that conflict and actually wanted to stay in Afghanistan even longer, which is crazy. Now, of course, while Obama does get some of that credit, most of the lion's share of that cost ends up going to, like I said, George W. Bush and the Congress that, of course, gave him the power to declare that war. And then, of course, the $120 billion from all the anti-ISIS stuff, that's all on him. So that's all on President Obama there. But anyway, $1.46 trillion. Again, that's a lot of money, but that doesn't even account for the entire costs that we've incurred. The report costs only include direct war-related expenses, such as operating and maintaining bases, procuring equipment, and paying for and feeding troops. It also most notably does not include the expense of veterans' benefits for troops who serve in these wars or the intelligence community's expenses related to the global war on terror. Now, a 2011 paper from Harvard Kennedy School professor Linda Bilmes estimated the cost of veterans' benefits at $600 billion to $1 trillion over the next 40 years. The number was based on nearly 500,000 veterans who were receiving compensation for disability connected to service as of February 2011. Since then, the number of veterans receiving compensation for service-related disability have increased drastically. Now, look, I'm bringing that up, right? Not because I want to blame veterans. Of course not. Of course not. We do owe these people. They did sign a contract and they did serve. The government's part is to do what the government said they were going to do. Take care of their medical bills. Take care of them. Okay? And we should take care of them. I don't think anybody wants to argue about that. Okay? Especially if they have both physical and psychological scars from being sent off to war. That's not an easy thing. Why do you think I didn't join? That's not an easy thing at all. So, yes, we should take care of them, absolutely. But I do have a good idea on how to cut down on those costs. That doesn't affect benefits. How about we stop creating more veterans? We can stop creating more veterans by not going to wars. No more new wars in the Middle East or in Africa, is what they're actually looking at now. No more of that. Especially since a lot of these wars, as of recent, have only been ways to enrich our corporations. I don't believe in using warfare to enrich companies, to help somebody's bottom line. That's not what war should be about. It should be about, in the case of where you're actually defending yourself. And that would be the only reason that I would think to go to war. You might not agree with me, but again, I think self-defense, okay? Now, I talked about the defense, the corporations, right, that are getting money, and these are defense contractors. Now, interestingly enough, defense contractors who from 2001 to 2013 received $3.3 trillion in payments from the federal government. That's more than an entire year of funding the entire government. Damn. So we actually spend far more than what this report has actually said. And this report, 1.46 trillion, is a lot of money. It's already a lot of money. In fact, that's the equivalent of about $250 million a day. That's enough money to send millions of Americans to college with tuition paid for. That's enough money to pay for health care for every American. More than enough to pay for Bernie Sanders' health care plan. Okay? And yet, we're not doing any of that stuff. We're not working on infrastructure. We're not, trying to do things that will enrich the lives of Americans. We're not spending it on education. No, what we're doing is that we're bombing brown people, essentially, for no reason, and actually creating more enemies. That's what we did. We spent all this money, and we ended up creating ISIS. But you know what? Somebody made all that money. Somebody got rich off this. And that's probably the worst thing. And that's unfortunately, that's what happens when you make war into a business. We are now, as a country, profiting off the business of death and destruction. That's not what America should be about. Okay. One more story. I'm going to leave you on a maybe slightly higher note, but a sort of bittersweet. Now, one of President Trump's campaign pollsters is saying something that progressives have been saying since the election. Get ready for it. Say it with me. Bernie would have won. According to The Hill, Trump pollster Tony Fabrizio told a Harvard University Institute of Politics event on Monday that Bernie Sanders could have won the election had he been the Democratic nominee. He says that Bernie Sanders would have done better in places where Hillary Clinton did not. He said, there was no question that if it had been anybody other than Clinton or anybody other than Trump, that race would not have been as close as it was either way. It would not have been. When asked what would happen during a Sanders-Trump matchup, Fabrizio says, quote, "I think Sanders beats Trump. I think Sanders would have had the ability to reach a lot of the less than college-educated, low-income white voters." Now, that is true. I do believe he would have been able to reach out better to some of those voters. But let's be honest, most Trump voters, it's been shown, were actually middle class or higher, moderately wealthy even. So these are people, you know, living in the suburbs, making over $100,000 a year. Donald Trump did really, really well with those people. And actually, a lot of poorer people did go for Hillary Clinton. So, to be fair. But look, this is funny because those voters that did go for Trump, those are the people that the Hillary Clinton campaign was targeting. They wanted to get the white suburban mom, you know, that voted for Mitt Romney to vote for Hillary Clinton. I guess since they're so similar. And these, you know, people who primarily vote Republicans. In fact, I think one of their strategists, and I always forget the name, it might have been Tom Perez, might not have been, but said something like, for every blue-collar voter we lose in Pennsylvania, we gain 2 people in the suburbs, Republican Romney voters in the suburbs. So that was their plan. Like, no, we're going to appeal to the center, which is actually center-right, and we're going to get these, you know, moderate Republicans. They're going to vote for Hillary Clinton, and then we're going to win the election because we appealed to the rational people. No, those people turned out for Trump overwhelmingly. So you can't really say that that was effective, okay? But that was their plan. Now, Bernie Sanders did do well with people who were poor. That's true, and people with middle class. But the fact that he did, that he's saying that, well, he would have done really, really well with poor white people, I don't know. The polling doesn't necessarily bear that out, and I'll get to that in a minute. But those voters, the middle class ones, and the wealthier ones that went for Trump, again, those are the people that, those people weren't mad at the establishment. Oh, of course not. They're actually doing well, really well under the Obama economy. So their problem is they just didn't like Hillary Clinton. They didn't like the Democrats. So let's be fair about that. Now, on white people, right? According to polls, only 53% of white people have a favorable view of Bernie Sanders. That's actually the demographic that he does worst with. Okay? He actually does far better with Latinos and African Americans. In fact, African Americans, he's got a 73% approval rating. That he does incredibly well. Now, could his outreach have been a little bit better? Of course. There's always room to criticize a campaign for stuff that you don't think that they did right. And that's a fair criticism that I've had of Bernie Sanders. But at the end of the day, it wasn't that screwed him over. It was the DNC. It was people like Tom Perez, who's now the head of the DNC. It was an Obama pick. This is a guy who came up with the smear to with the smear that Bernie Sanders does not do well with minorities. Oh, no. Nevada is very, very diverse. Looks like the rest of the country. We can't have Bernie Sanders win here. So we're going to say that he just doesn't do well with African Americans. He does really, really well with white people. I just referenced a poll, several, by the way. It was a Fox News poll even. 53% of white people compared to 73% of black voters that approve of Bernie Sanders. That is a lie and a smear of Sanders. So, again, Trump pollster, what do you expect, right? But anyway, look, it's not true that he does well with that he does poorly with minority groups. Now, of course, there will be people that have and will say that the GOP, the reason that Bernie Sanders is still popular is because the GOP really didn't attack Bernie Sanders. That's why he polled better. Hillary Clinton was the subject of relentless attack by the Republicans, by the smear machine. And look, they're right. There's a lot of truth to that, right? Candidates who are under attack obviously take a huge hit in polling. Hillary Clinton wasn't polling great before the election anyway. Hillary Clinton has always been pretty unpopular. Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in America. Now, if he got attacked by the right-wing smear machine, yes, he would probably lose a few points. But at the same time, he's very, very popular, even among Republicans. Trump, he was the second most unpopular. Hillary Clinton actually had the higher negatives than Donald Trump, and even at this point, she's still more unpopular than he is. While Bernie Sanders consistently polled higher than Donald Trump by double digits. The most brutal attacks by Donald Trump and the Republicans might have eroded him by a few points. But when you're double digits ahead, that's not the difference between winning and losing. But with Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump running against each other, it was so very close. It was closer than it should have been. Way closer than it should have been. And he's right about that. Now, there will, of course, be attacks of, hey, he's a socialist. Well, they already talk about that anyway. It's funny is that socialism is actually becoming more popular among young people. So it's not really an effective attack against people who are millennials, who are going to turn out at the polls, or who could turn out at the polls and really make a huge impact in the elections. And also, look, the people with whom red baiting actually works, they're not the type of people that would be voting for a Democrat anyway, because, again, the right likes to characterize every Democrat as a card-carrying communist. So, again, just saying. And look, even when broken down, Bernie's policies, they actually poll very well even among Republicans. Things like that are pretty universal, like infrastructure spending, in this case, opposition to free trade, and breaking up the banks, taxing the rich. Those are popular proposals. And even Medicare for All has gained some traction with Republicans as well. And also an advantage for Bernie Sanders, other than just being on the right side of a lot of policy, is you take away Trump's biggest weapon, the anger at the establishment. Bernie Sanders is not an establishment figure. He wasn't corrupt. He wasn't corrupt Bernie. Okay? Crooked Bernie. No, you'd have to come up with something like, oh, crazy Bernie. Crazy Bernie wants to give you health care. How dare he? But wait, you say you want to give everybody health care. In fact, he said it in his speeches before. We're going to have great health care. It's going to be universal health care. Everybody's going to get it. It's going to be cheaper. It's going to be greater. It's going to be tremendous. What you were offering, you were trying to offer the same thing. Now, he did so because he was being incredibly vague on purpose, because he didn't actually have a plan. But all the stuff that he promised from his healthcare plan would have actually happened under Bernie Sanders' healthcare plan, under Medicare for All. So, again, he took away a lot of Donald Trump's most potent weapons, especially when it comes to weaponizing anger against the establishment, the political elite, okay, who weren't exactly friends of Bernie Sanders. But anyway, he also didn't have the scandal, the baggage, unfairly or not, that Hillary Clinton also had. So that leaves very, very little avenues of attack. Just, oh, it's crazy Bernie, he's a socialist and wants to take all your money. Which is not true, of course. And look, he was also perfect for an election that was a rebuke of the status quo. So this is 2016 was basically the people saying, you know what, the voters saying, hey, we're tired of your establishment. We're tired of your corruption. We're tired of the status quo. We want change, and we want it now. Well, Bernie Sanders, definitely a change candidate, and would have actually done far better than Trump, because his kind of change was positive change, and Trump's kind of change was negative change. So yes, Bernie Sanders would have won. I do believe that. The polls that pitted Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump, and even polls that do so now, after the election, tell us so. Show us so. And now even Trump's pollster is saying, yeah, we knew. We're so glad the Democrats in their infinite wisdom decided to run Hillary Clinton. It was a gift from heaven. Manna from heaven. Boy, they were looking out for us because they actually ran one of the worst candidates against Donald Trump. Well, that's what happens. One of the Democrats, the corporate Democrats, the establishment, going to admit that this was not the right way to go. That neoliberal economic policy doesn't work. Focused on only identity politics minus intersectionalism doesn't work. You've got to have intersectional politics if you're going to have, for example, there's, a lot of the Hillary Clinton supporters, unfortunately, are your straight up white feminists that are not intersexual. Or intersectional. They leave out women of color. I mean, look at the nasty attacks against Nina Turner, for example. This is from white liberal feminists. Now, there's feminism, which is awesome, right? Intersectional feminism, which is great. White liberal feminism, not so good. So, but they wanted to focus on that and focus on, no, it's our turn. It's my turn. I'm with her. That's why they lost. A big part of why they lost. Look, when are the Democrats going to admit that nothing that they did works and things that they stand for don't work? That giving more unlimited money to corporations and allowing corporations to give the politicians unlimited money, that it doesn't work. That it doesn't work. When are they going to do that? Well, they're not going to do that. And that's why we, as progressives, we actually have to replace them. We've got to get them out of power. We've got to replace them. And we've got to, take back what's ours. The Democratic Party. Okay. Anyway. That's all I got for you guys. I know I went over today. That's awesome. That's fine. Make sure to give me a like and a share on this stream. I appreciate it. I also appreciate all you guys. Thank you so much. You're amazing, as usual. Thank you for being in the chat room. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for tweeting. Let me check a few here. And thank you for doing all the stuff that you do to support the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. That's it. We got a great show tomorrow, so make sure to tune in Thursday right here, 3 p.m. Eastern, TYT Nation. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see you tomorrow.